I feel so strong sometimes, because of this community that I stand on. Like, all of you. So strong, because I know what it looks like when people show up for one another. Like when people really show up for one another over 30 years or 50 years. My grandparents are here. You know, that's what it means to be in community. It means to show up. And the rest can come. The real estate, the bank loans, it comes. The angels come. But how do we show up for one another? So I have now learned from many other communities. They have other secrets and wisdom. And sometimes they'll share them when you're in community. So I borrow from the work of justice. You know, this is a place of cultivating beauty and angels and wonder. But the other piece of my education has been about justice. You know, so we're in a time of real crisis in the world. And we can't build fences big enough to keep ourselves separate from other communities. You know, there was a time when it was like, let's build intentional communities where we can go to a refuge and an oasis. But this isn't the time we're living in. And so anthroposophy around the world is asking this question of like, how do we stay relevant? You know, because there's older folks who had a vision, and there's younger folks that are coming up, but they're not all the way connected. And there's this big, big gap. And so we're standing in that big, big gap right now. And so it was Caitlin, actually, who was a young woman who went to this school and spent a lot of time with my mother and with the family. And she invited me, I think in 2009, she was working with the International Youth Section of Anthroposophic Life and young people that went to Waldorf schools all over. So she invited me to come speak. And I had been out in the world. I hadn't really been connected to Waldorf schools other than when I come to Saratoga or visit or something. And I went there and there were 600 young people from all over the world. I'm talking South Africa, Brazil, all through Europe, US and Canada, and they were all there using their faculties. They were busting out the handiwork, they were woodworking, they were singing, they all knew the same songs, like they had this whole language. It was amazing, and it was like weirdly familiar, like I was like, I kind of know this stuff, like what? This is Waldorf. And then they said, can you talk about justice? Can you talk about justice? We need to know about justice. We want to organize community. We want to organize with other communities. And we want to build a youth movement that's all around the world. That's about peace and justice and has imagination and creativity. This is some serious business. So that was like in 2009. So for since then, I've been working steadily. One of the groups I work with is this International Youth Initiative, which is mostly Waldorf students from all over the world, although there's other students in the programs who didn't go to Waldorf schools. And they're social entrepreneurs, and they're having a conversation about building the future. And we can talk about angels, and we can talk about justice, and we talk about all those kinds of things. And it's tricky sometimes, but we have to go between. We have to have these conversations. We have to meet. And so once again, it's completely changed my life, because the way I work in US communities has changed because of my connection to this international group of anthroposophic community. And so I go twice a year to Sweden and I work with them. And so it's just a time of integration and things are coming together. And so I think the school, it's not a coincidence that we're celebrating this moment. It's 30 years, of course, that's a lifetime, you know, in some communities. And so we stop and we take notice, but there's something else that's being called in this moment. It's something really powerful. And so I'm trying to listen for it, and I'm excited to have the conversation that we've already started. We started a conversation with alums. I heard that in preparation for this weekend, that the children were cleaning the walls, that they came and redid the gardens, that parents came, that you invited all the elders yesterday for Grandparents' Day. And now you're taking note of where we've come, where we've been, and where we might go together. This is like really powerful preparation work. This isn't just a, 30-year anniversary party. This is like many hands taking stock of where we've been and where we're going and what's this time. So I can feel the energy that's possible here, and it's so strong, so strong, that it's ready to meet the world. And we're big enough, we're strong enough that we can share. We have a piece of wisdom here in this school, in this community, that needs to be shared. It needs to be shared, and it needs other kinds of wisdom to come in and influence it. And there used to be more fear around this. In a lot of indigenous communities right now, the wisdom is coming out. Traditionally it's been that it doesn't leave an indigenous community. If there's a ceremonial leader, it's only for indigenous people. But now, in many indigenous cultures, they're having to take it out. They're having to bring it out and meet the world and do something with it. And it's controversial, because people say, no, this is only for us. Like, this is how we keep this wisdom safe. But if the indigenous folks are listening to the earth and they're bringing their wisdom out, there's something here that needs to come out now. And it's so strong, it's already happening. You talked about young people all over the world who are influenced by this, who are connected to this. And until we listen to it, until we ask, what is it, what do you want? You know, and consciously collaborate with it, we can't really know. But we can feel that something else is possible. With what was built over the last 30 years, I think anything is possible. Like, really anything is possible. I'm so honored to come and try to speak to this moment, but I open it as an invitation to be an ongoing conversation. I think what really makes institutions strong is all this people around and the alumni. And the alumni, they can get a postcard in the mail and ask for money and stuff. That's not what makes meaning for them. What makes meaning for them is their connection to this community, and we saw it last night for some folks that were hanging out. So we are in community with one another, and we want to be asked, and we want to ask of each other. So I think it's like an open invitation. We can ask, how can I serve this community? And we can ask, this is what I actually need from this community to do what I'm destined to do. And there's no scarcity. You know, if we all need, like traditional capitalism, there's not enough. There's not enough, it's not designed for anyone to have enough. But actually there's so much abundance that if we give something to it, and everyone wants to give something, that's how we find meaning, then there's so much that it could serve so many more. So it's a little vague, but I feel like there's an open invitation, and I want to respond to the invitation. Like, I'm here, and I'll show up here anytime, you know, that we want to have a conversation about where to take this work and this legacy. So I think I'll leave it at that. I have a couple more things to say. Mom, will you come up here? So mad at me. Come up here, Mom. Mom, I'm your boss. I have her microphone.
I can continue.
Evie, you want to come up here?
Oh my God. She's so...
These two are the worst because they work so hard and they are terrible. They don't want to stand up here. They're so mad at me right now. But what I wanted to say was I wanted them to have to stand up here, and I wanted y'all to look at them. They have built something so beautiful, and it's these ones in the world that I now know how to recognize you guys all over the world. Because anytime I enter a system or a community, there's these ones. I call them community builders. I don't know what y'all call yourselves, you magic ones, grandmas. But they're always there. So anywhere you go, you can look for them, and you know when you meet them. And they're building community, and they're building miracles, and they're talking right to the angels, and they're talking about the children, and they never lose focus. Like, they always kind of know what they're doing, but you have to ask them, because they don't really tell you. They just say, oh, I'm making coffee. But if you ask them questions, they'll tell you. They don't forget anything. They don't forget anything. They remember every person and everything, and especially when they talk to each other. So ask them. They will tell you. We could do a story project. But there's a Zulu West African, an African Zulu greeting that is Sawubona, that I've learned from a friend of mine. And Sawubona means, I see you. And when you greet people, this is like how we can't exist without one another. That we arrive here because we are seen. And so when you greet people, you say, Sawubona, I see you, and then you say, well, I am here. So if I could ask everyone to stand. And I just want my mother and Evie to see them, just to watch them. And if you could turn to the people next to you and greet them Salvono, I see you, and I am here. See you. So that's all I have to say. Usually when you greet people, then something else will happen. So if I just walk away, then some other inspiration will come, because now you've been seen and you've greeted, and you can continue to greet people around the way. And the last thing I'll say is that on behalf of the alum and many people that have been touched by this community, we're having a plaque made that honors the founder and honors the 30 years. And we know that the school will find somewhere beautiful to hang it once it comes. So thank you so much, and salvono.